You ever been like driving home from a party or something where you met somebody new and you realize that you just like didn't talk to the people about them? You just like answered questions about yourself and you thought, dang, I really should have asked questions about them. Like,
yeah.
What's their wife's name? What's their kid's name?
I always feel so bad about that. And then like sometimes you wait too long or like you don't see him again for a while and then it's like too awkward to like bring it back up because you're like, oh, well, I should have said that earlier when we were still introducing ourselves and we were still at like the new friend stage, because now I feel bad asking because they're going to be like, why didn't you ask me that earlier? But I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing is just awkward. I hate it when I do that.
Yeah. I mean, Dale Carnegie, people love talking about themselves. And that's one trap that Jennie and I have fallen into a lot. And so one of the things we want to encourage you to do is to quit thinking about yourself. Welcome to the Let's Quit podcast.
Quitting is not always a bad thing.
If you have the right mindset, quitting can be the most powerful tool you have on your journey to success. It's certainly been helpful for us.
Whether it's flying through hurricanes, building our businesses, or just trying to get to bed on time, we're always trying to level up and improve our lives.
This is the show where we share the lessons, experiences, and friends that have helped us live this incredible life. So let's quit the bad and grow the good together.
All right, so thank you so much to all of our new listeners and our returning listeners who come back every single week and just listen to us talk. We really appreciate you, and thanks to everybody on Patreon. We are still, as of right now, a listener-supported podcast, so you guys helping us out means a lot.
Yeah, and if you're considering making a donation or supporting the show in some way, go to patreon.com/jennieanddavis and pick the tier that fits you best. Patreon.com/jennieanddavis. Patreon. Did I spell that right?
Yeah, I think.
You'll get there. Type in whatever I just said.
Google will help you.
Google will help you find where you need to be. So with that being said, man, this has been one insane week. Yeah. We just got electricity back about 2 hours ago.
Yeah, hour and a half, 2 hours ago.
So you've been following the news this week, or I guess last week by the time this airs. Houston and Texas as a whole, just like, and Oklahoma and a bunch of other central states just like really
got slammed with some winter weather. Like, and weather that we don't typically get either. It's
never get. Like,
pretty rare.
This is record breaking. Like,
yeah.
This has never happened before in the history of humanity.
Especially in Houston. Like,
yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, people have been cold in the history of humanity, but Houston has never been this cold in the history of humanity.
Right. So I guess we'll back up. We'll tell you the whole story. So the weather started getting bad on Sunday night, and we knew it was going to get pretty bad. We're like, hey, we might lose power for a little while, maybe. And obviously we had like food and water stocked up just because we were stocked up for the, pandemic anyways, just in case, more lockdowns came or whatever. But we were woken up on Monday morning at 2 a.m. by the electricity going out, and we're like, oh, wow, it's a little earlier than I thought it would be, but all right, here we go. So the power went out. And then we woke up at 6 a.m., just like as usual, to start a normal day. And we noticed that the thermostat was at 51 degrees. And there was no water coming out of the faucets. I woke up to brush my teeth and I turned the faucet and I was like, oh no, it's going to be one of these storms. All right, let's go. And so we got out of bed and then we're like, hey, is this happening to everybody? So Davis goes outside to just check the water main on the house because we're like, are the pipes frozen under the ground? Are they just frozen under our house, or is it the actual pipe that goes into the house?
Right. So in the South here, the water main comes up from the street, it's underground. And then right before it goes into the house, it comes up out of the ground and turns 90 degrees and goes into the wall, completely exposed to the air, which... yeah, if you live in a cold climate, that's a really stupid way to do it. But if you live in a place where it's 120 degrees in the summers, it doesn't matter. You want it to be available for service. You don't want it buried underground or in a wall somewhere, where it's hot. So just an example of our infrastructure is not meant to handle these colder temperatures, and it doesn't matter your experience with cold weather. I mean, we spent 4.5 years in North Dakota, and that had nothing to do with whether or not we had water. So
right.
I'm checking on this water main, and I see the neighbor come out, and she's older. She's not elderly, but she's older, and she's checking on her water main too. Well, then we haven't met our neighbors. I don't know. We're bad neighbors.
We'll wave to them, but we're not here a lot between Air Force stuff and hurricane season and training. We're just not around much.
We haven't had time to meet all the neighbors. So I find out that this lovely woman speaks almost zero English, and I speak about as much Spanish. And so we're talking to each other, and we finally figure out that she doesn't have electricity. We don't have electricity. She doesn't have water. We don't have water. She has food and drinking water, and we have food and drinking water. So that makes me feel a lot better inside that, like, all right, this nice, sweet lady is in the same boat that we are. We can get through this together. And sure enough, like, the whole neighborhood is basically in the same boat. So
most of Houston was, like, in the same boat.
Right. So our church group was texting, too. Everybody was, like, trying to find out who's got power, who's got water, who needs something. Of course, nobody's driving because it's snow on top of ice, which is, even in the colder states, you don't do that till the trucks have been out to plow it or throw sand down or something. So,
but there are no trucks here.
There ain't no trucks down here in Houston.
No.
So, yeah. So I go back inside and I'm like telling this whole story to Jennie and like, here's what's going on. I think it's just the pipe outside because it's caked in ice.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we hear a soft knock on the front door, and it's this next door neighbor, and she has come over and she's got a Target bag of like paper plates, and then she's got like a little coffee thing you see like at church or at like Panera where you pump on the top and coffee comes out, and what does she say?
She hands it to us and she goes, agua y tamales, and like tells us to stay warm. So what she had done is she probably has a bunch of tamales in her freezer. She pulls them all out, steams them, hands us a plate of like smoking hot tamales.
They were delicious.
They were
by the way.
so good.
Best tamales I've ever had.
And a huge container of hot water. Yeah. So that we could like stay warm and make tea and stuff. And we were like,
it was so sweet.
Oh my gosh, like I don't know you and I don't even speak the same language as you, but a winter storm hits and you're bringing me like hot food and water in the morning. Like, I feel like people don't do that anymore. We don't see it like that. I don't know. We don't see so much of that in our culture today. I just thought it was so kind.
Yeah, well, I mean, or at least like that's not what's going to get the titles on the media articles.
Right.
So like the media, like people would this has nothing to do with the media, by the way. This is just a people thing. I mean, look at YouTube. People would 10 times out of 10 click on a negative title than they would a positive, uplifting title. Mm-hmm. That's just part of humanity. That doesn't have anything to do with media. So you're not going to see the good stories that come out of like people helping each other and stuff like that.
Right. But it like, oh my gosh, it like almost brought a tear to our eye. It was so sweet that like first thing in the morning, that's what, she was doing for us.
Yeah.
So we got that. And then the next thing to think about is like, how are we going to warm up the house?
Yep.
So thankfully we have a gas stove, which is really nice. We weren't relying on electricity for that. So we turned on all those burners, let it get really warm in the kitchen. But we also had to kind of like waft the warm air into the rest of the house.
So our kitchen is separated from the rest of the living room. Living room has like vaulted ceilings, but the kitchen is like built like partial walls. Like, don't think of a bathroom, but like a bathroom stall where it like doesn't go all the way to the ceiling. Like that's sort of the walls that go around our kitchen. So we had to like waft the air with poster board that we use for photographing our products and stuff. I'm just waving this huge piece of mat board trying to get hot air to the rest of the house, and I don't know, it did a pretty good job.
It definitely heated like the majority of the house. We shut all the doors to the back of the house, like all the bathrooms and bedrooms and stuff, just so we weren't unnecessarily heating them. But yeah, it worked. And then I was like, well, we do have a fireplace.
Well, so I was on the anti-fireplace train. Jennie wanted to try the fireplace. I didn't, because in this house, we're in a rental house, and when something is perfectly clean and unused, it usually means it's broken. For example, we got this water softener in the garage. I don't know if you've seen it in our YouTube videos, but there's a water softener in the garage. Very nice system, very expensive system when they first got it installed, but it's completely bypassed. I've tried playing with it once or twice, but it's completely bypassed from all the plumbing. It does not get used anymore. Well, come to find out, it doesn't work. It's been broken, and the company that built it went out of business. So there's not even a way to buy replacement parts. So the only thing to do is to pay somebody to tear it out, or just bypass it and leave it there.
So guess which one they chose.
Right. So our homeowner does not want to update it, so it's just sitting in place where it is right now. So, and I thought the same thing with the fireplace, because it's not plumbed into the heating and air conditioning of the house. It's a completely separate wood burning stove. There is a fan that blows air around the hot box where you like heat, where you burn stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like a metal box, and there's air going around that to pump air into the house. But I just thought, well, the cord on the electrical plug has been chewed off by a previous tenant's dog, probably. And I sure hope it wasn't a human. That would be some
Either
kind
way,
of human.
We couldn't use it even if we wanted to because we had no power.
So I'm thinking the fireplace is perfectly clean. There's no ashes. It's all cleaned out, and which is a rarity in this house.
So
and
therefore,
I'm thinking it's broken or not
Yeah.
usable. And so Jenny's like, no, let's just try it. Let's just try it. So we pull in the scrap bucket from the garage because we burn all our scraps in the backyard. But we had enough that we haven't burned yet. So we fortunately had a really good stack of scraps, nice hardwood scraps.
yes.
But we drug that into the living room, and I put some in the fireplace, and I lit it with the propane torch. Well, before I did that, like I opened the door. There was no dead birds or anything in there like that, because I had a wood-burning stove growing up, but it was plumbed into the house's heating and air conditioning. And I just remember my parents having a bear of a time keeping that thing running because there's always birds' nests in the chimney, and then the flue caught on fire, and then you had to like call the chimney sweep, and it was just a nightmare growing up. But none of that in this one. And I could hear at the top of the chimney, I could hear, when you blow on the top of a bottle to make a musical note or whatever, I heard that at the top of the chimney. So I thought, okay, I can hear air coming up and down the chimney. Of course, plus cold air was like pouring into the living room. So I knew that we had an unobstructed path from the fireplace up through the chimney. So from there, I just put some wood in and I lit it and I shut the door real fast so the smoke didn't get into the house too badly. And sure enough, white smoke started puffing out the top of the chimney.
And it works perfectly fine.
And it works. So that really went a long way to helping warm the house up.
Oh my gosh, that made a huge difference. Like for reference, it was like 12 degrees outside when we started this whole experience, this endeavor. So yeah, when we say cold, we were talking like 12 degrees, which for Houston is absolutely unheard of.
And the house was like 50.
Yeah.
And we warmed it up to about 62,
yeah,
63.
I think, 62. So it was like, oh my gosh, it felt so much better. I'm so glad that we decided to use the fireplace. So that's what we did the rest of the night. We slept out in the living room on the guest bed, which is a futon.
Very uncomfortable, by the way.
Very uncomfortable
futon. Gotta replace that.
Yeah. But yeah, it worked well, and we just didn't want to keep heating other rooms in the house when we didn't have to, so we just slept in the warmest room of the house and kept the fire going, and that worked pretty well. Still no water, but
yeah. So after we've tackled the heating problem, I thought, okay, well maybe I know the water main outside is frozen, but maybe it's just the pipes in the attic that are frozen. Because we got like PEX tubing that like routes the water around the house in the attic, and I thought those are probably frozen in the attic. So I thought the house will sort of heat the attic up. The attic will melt that. So all I've got to do is thaw the water main outside the house. So I grab the propane torch and I walk outside. And for a good 15, 20 minutes, I just stay there with the copper pipe and the blowtorch, just heating up the copper pipe, trying to get it to thaw and melt. And we went back inside because we gave up. We thought, it's done.
Oh, yeah. We're like, this isn't going to work. This is
So we just left the cold water handle on a couple faucets, and we just thought if it thaws, we'll hear it. Well, about 2.5 hours later, all of a sudden we hear, and all of a sudden we got water again.
Yes, in one bathroom, and we were like, water! And so sure enough, like the water was working, and so then we turned on the rest just so they'd be prepared for when the water finally made it to those faucets. But yeah, it was definitely a happy day, or it was definitely a happy night when we, ended up getting water. So that was good.
Yeah, so we had food, we had water, we had, because with COVID, we had learned, like, stock up on food because the grocery store is not always going to be able to help you out. So we had stocked up on food and water, so we were fine there. We got the house warm. That was good. And we finally had indoor plumbing. So we're moving right along here, okay? This is like a nice camping experience in a camper or an RV, like, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So we're walking around the neighborhood. And of course, all the kids are playing. Everybody's having fun. And it's just the weirdest thing to see snow on palm trees.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you think it would be a reflection on the palm fronds because they're like so shiny and waxy. And you're like, oh, that white stuff is just the reflection of the sun. No, it was straight snow. Very odd to see. Hopefully they don't all die here in a couple of months because they do not do well in cold temperatures. But yeah, we built a snowman in the front yard also. That's crazy, just so we can say we built a snowman in Houston.
It was really small. It was like,
it was tiny.
It was
but
maybe 10 inches tall, but
it counts.
I didn't have patience for much more.
It counts. And I don't think we were going to get much more because it was like that kind of icy snow.
Yeah, it was like slushy almost already. But Anyway, it was just so cool to see all the neighborhood. Like everybody was walking around. It was like a movie scene from like 1950s and 60s. Like kids were playing. Everybody was walking around. People were talking to each other. People were like literally walking up and down the street handing out supplies. It was really cool. We tried to hand out some firewood, but apparently nobody else has a fireplace, so we get to keep all.
Or
that
they
for
don't
ourselves.
use it. There were a couple people that like they'd have one, but they like remodeled the house and took it out because they don't need one. And so we're like, ugh, this is crazy. Houston's just not prepared for any of this sort of weather.
Yep. So, but it was just so cool to see everybody like passing stuff around and everything. And like, so we posted that on Instagram and I don't know, I was shocked. Jennie and I are pretty desensitized to like social media hate. And of course this wasn't hate, but like everybody immediately, the whole post, you can go back and look at it at Jennie and Davis on Instagram. The post was very nice. It was just saying, we woke up this morning, no water, no electricity. It was really cold. But the whole neighborhood came together, rah, rah, like things are great. People are awesome kind of a post. But like almost all the comments were people just like beating their chest saying, oh, it was -10 today when I drove in, y'all a bunch of babies. And
just, like that's funny. I've got 2 feet of snow in my backyard. And you're just like, apples and oranges.
It was just so sad because like there's old people that are being right now. The Texas National Guard is like carrying old people to these heated gymnasiums and public spaces because the old people just can't make it.
They just don't know how to take care of themselves. And it's a lot of work to take care of yourself in weather like this.
And I get it. And like everybody loves to make fun of the South when we get like an inch of snow and stuff like that. And the whole place shuts down, which I understand that. It's kind of funny, but at the same time too, like this was a catastrophe. Like even Governor Abbott today said that like this is the winter version of Hurricane Harvey. Our whole electrical grid like went off the rails.
Yeah.
To the point where like people that didn't have power like us, we were told like, we're not getting you power for a while because we don't have enough to go around. So why are we gonna fix people's power if we don't have enough to go around? So they just said,
we're not
you'll
gonna
be fine in a couple days.
Yeah, we're not going to bring you back on the grid just so we can spread it even thinner. Like you'll get power when you get power, basically.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was just really upsetting that like we made this awesome post about how cool humans were and like that we were all helping each other out. We're all in this together, kumbaya sort of post.
And then all the comments were like.
And then everybody else was just so stuck in their own subjective like point of view, like either like trying to relate, which I understand those people, but there were some people just straight up laughing. And I'm just like, hey man, that's not super appropriate right now.
Yeah.
So anyway, the whole point is like of this podcast is to like keep you from making those stupid mistakes because I've made plenty of them.
Oh yeah. I feel like we all do. It's just something that's hard to master is putting yourself in other people's shoes.
Right. So we're right at the doorstep of the title topic. You want to hit him with the quote? Well, we got to play a little jingle and then you can hit him with the quote.
Okay, go for the jingle. All right, so our quote is from Dale Carnegie from the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. I'm
Great book.
Sure you have heard of it.
We'll put it in the show notes. It's a great book if you've never heard of it.
But it says, any fool can criticize, complain, and condemn. And most fools do, but it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving.
Wow.
Takes work to be a good person.
Yep, it sure does. So, like I said, we posted about this on Instagram. So did Evan and Caitlin, and their comment section looked about the same. Of course, Evan and Caitlin, like they actually had a pipe bust.
Yeah,
they had a flood
gosh.
in their like living room. It looked like, and anyway, they fixed it. But like, their comment section was the same sort of thing.
Yeah, you went
too.
through and read it.
Yeah, it was the same sort of people being like, "Ha ha, stupid Texans." I'm like, geez, come on, guys, their house is flooding. Like,
yeah,
people
it was
suck
just
sometimes.
Interesting. And so we decided to make the topic, quit thinking about yourself, quit comparing, yourself to others. And I know sometimes we say that's what you want to do because it's like to put yourself in other people's shoes, you have to see what you're going through and also what they're going through. But I feel like what people miss is like, you can relate yourself to others, but then what do you do after you've related yourself? So like if you find that you're similar or you find that you're different, now what do you do about that? Instead of just saying, oh, I'm like you. Then what? Is it like, oh, hey, let me help you?
Like some people are like legitimate. Some people it is straight up just a comparison contest. They're just like, oh, you can't handle 5-degree temperatures? That sucks. I deal with -20 every day. Like people, I don't know if people are just expecting like a pat on the back or like, I don't even think they're thinking about it that hard. I think they're just like word vomiting onto social media. And they don't realize like the implications of the words that they're saying or how that looks. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't ever want to make a comment like that. I think I'm scarred by this because I am the worst at this. I'm the worst of the worst when it comes to like not understanding the emotional repercussions of the words that I'm saying. So that's why we wanted to make this a podcast, is because we also want to like do some therapy on our own self, like just talking through the podcast of like, hey, don't ever look that way.
Yeah, or like,
ever.
where in life am I doing this and I don't know about it? Like, where in life do I need to fix this and rein myself back in?
Right. So all we mean by like thinking about yourself is we don't mean just like being self-absorbed. Very few people are intentionally self-absorbed narcissists. What we're talking about is like people that are constantly trying to compare themselves to other people, and you don't realize how selfish of an act that actually is. Number two, you're not trying to relate to people in the correct way. You're trying to... Most people say, oh, I'm just trying to build rapport. I'm just trying to understand that like we have things in common. But what you're doing when you say, oh, I have a dog too, he's big and yellow and fluffy, when somebody else is trying to tell a story about their dog, is like you're hijacking the conversation.
Right. You're
not focusing on what they're saying. You're trying so hard to be liked that making everybody not like you.
And I feel like this applies in so many areas. I know right now we're talking about like personal life, but a lot of times we do talk about business things on this podcast. And I feel like it applies there too. If you're trying to talk to somebody and get them to, you know, like you and buy something from you and support your business, you're going to need some of these, you know, tools also, because you know, being a salesman doesn't mean you're only good at selling people things. You have to be good at relating to people and building good relationships.
Yeah, because sales is not convincing people your product is best. Sales is helping people. It literally, it's helping people, whether it's your product or not. You've got to help the customer. And so we see so many people like, oh, I can't make sales. And we ask why, and they're like, well, they said they wanted something strong, so I listed the 30 reasons why my furniture is better than everybody else. It's like, dude, you just trash talked everybody else. Like, understand what you're saying here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to just listen to the customer and hear them out and try to put yourself in their shoes. And the choice to buy your furniture will be obvious to them at the end of the conversation. People buy from people. Somebody in the stud stack said that the other day. So that's all we're trying to say is like, just be a good human being. Like, listen to somebody else. Stop talking. I'm sort of stepping in the action steps. But like, anyway, we have research on this. Again, we are not qualified in this arena, but we still talk about it. Welcome to the Let's Quit podcast. So according to Sarah Konrath, PhD, we did some research here. Empathy levels are decreasing over time. This is not just younger people, although it is inflated in younger people. It's just people across the board. So it's not just the dang kids being so selfish on their iPads and the social medias and the whatnot. It's
all people.
Across the board, empathy levels are dropping. And what do we mean by empathy? Empathy is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and fully understand their emotional experience. And though that ability is being lost in our culture for a lot of reasons. Number one, they're saying that social media, everybody's so worried about how they are perceived by others, which is what we were talking about earlier. It's like people want to be seen that they're relatable. So I saw somebody else post a picture of their dog. I'm going to post a picture of my dog. Like, everybody's trying so hard to be relatable that we're losing the relationship.
Right, because it's, you know, you both have a dog, but now what? Does that mean you're going to go talk to them? Does that mean you're going to go offer to walk their dog when they're not home? Does that mean, you know, you're going to send them a card when their dog dies? Like, you know, what does that mean past the fact that you both have two dogs?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what do you do next once you've made that relation with somebody else? And so another thing, like she was talking about, your brain, when you watch somebody else pick up a coffee mug, your brain lights up the same part of your brain when you pick up a coffee mug. Does that make sense? So like when you see somebody do something that you know how to do, that part of your brain lights up also.
Because you know how to do it also.
Right. And so that mechanism is what we're using to relate to people, but we're not trying to understand them. We're just trying to show them that we know that too. We're just trying to say, oh, look, I know how to pick up a coffee mug too. See, now we can be friends. We both pick up coffee mugs. Or it gets nasty. It's like, oh, I can pick up 10 coffee mugs. How many coffee mugs can you pick up? So then it becomes this like coffee cup measuring contest of like who's better at picking up coffee mugs. And so that's what we're seeing on social media all the time, is people constantly comparing themselves to other people, trying to relate if you'd push them on it. But at the end of the day, they're really just trying to show that they're better than other people. And the worst offenders are the people that like are not conscious of that. So like, you know, the type of people that like they give all the time, like to a fault. They will go out of their way to help other people, but then they throw an absolute tantrum when nobody helps them.
Yeah, like the giving with expectation type thing.
Yes, that's so toxic. And I know everybody has somebody like that in their lives. And these people, they think of themselves as the most self-sacrificing people that there are. And yeah, when you look at the scoreboard, they do a lot for other people, but at what cost? You're making everybody like you're not when you give something to somebody, everybody knows, oh, now what do they expect out of me? Mm-hmm. You're not actually giving. So if you're that kind of person, or you live with that kind of person, yeah, they seem to be the most generous, but yeah, they throw a tantrum when somebody doesn't reciprocate. So
I feel like that type of person is more me. Like I'm willing to like give. And then like in my brain, I'm like, oh, well, looking at the scoreboard, like I've given so much, like, wouldn't it be easy for somebody to like return a favor? But not necessarily. Like nobody else keeps score except for you.
You do that on chores day. When we do chores, like I'll be working. I don't know. I'll vacuum and mop the floors or whatever. And then when I'm done with that and I sit down because I'm waiting for the water to dry off the floor, you just come in and you're like, oh my gosh, I've done the dishes and the laundry and fed the pets and walked the dog, and like you just start listing off everything that you've done.
I sound way better than that, and I say it with so much more class and dignity.
but the thing there is that you're just wired to keep the score even no matter what. And like you see that you've done way more than everybody else, and you get mad that my job takes less time, or that part of my job means I get to sit on the couch and eat Cheez-Its a little bit longer than you do. So anyway, but I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. So there's another kind of person where we will spend all of our time and we'll tell everybody, oh, I'm building this thing for this person. It's going to help so many people. I'm working on this new app. It's going to connect the world and make the world a better. Mark Zuckerberg is one of these kind of people. I'm going to make this app and people are going to be connected and they're going to love each other and everything. Or like we work on something that we say is to help other people, but we never get around to the helping other people part. We just spend way too much time trying to, like, I'm thinking of the movie Idiocracy.
Oh, yeah.
Don't watch it with kids. But, like, if you've ever seen that movie, it's like this couple is, like, really high succeeding, like a power couple. They've got good jobs, but they choose not to have kids. And they're just like, oh, I'm waiting a little bit longer. Let's just wait for the career to steady out and like get one kid. And they're like, okay, no more kids. But they're also following, in the beginning of the movie, they're following this other family that's like dirt poor, has no money, but yet they're popping out a kid just as fast as they can. And it's just showing that like the people that are trying to do the most end up doing the least, because they say they're focusing on it, but they never get around to it. So I guess that's all I'm saying is like I'm in the camp of people where I say I'm working on helping people, but I never actually get around to doing it. So part of my problem is the follow through.
Yeah.
So whether you're in either of those camps, everybody is worried about themselves. Everybody is trying to keep score of their own sacrifices and expecting other people to keep score also. And you just can't do that.
Yeah, that's just not the way it works. Nobody keeps everybody else's score in their head. You
are the only person keeping score for you. And some people just can't get over that. And so I'm here to tell you, ain't nobody keeping score except you. So when you give without expectation. So we're getting into action steps.
Yeah.
Here. Next time you talk to somebody, quit talking. Just listen and ask questions. That's it.
Yep. Like, just try to find out like as much as you can about that person. Don't try to relate to them. Don't try to like tell cool stories that match their stories. Don't like try to tell a worse story so that their story sounds better. You're overthinking it. Next time you talk to somebody, just stop talking. Just listen and ask questions, and you'll come away from the conversation appearing like the best people talker person at the party. Clearly that's not me. Being a good people person. And then our next action step is quit keeping score between friends and favors. It's like if you've ever seen the episode of The Office with Dwight and Andy, and like one of them does a favor. They like hold the door. Like one holds the door for the other person, and that starts this like snowball effect of them trying to do favors for each other. Right, because nobody wants to be left, with the person that owes somebody else, because then they look bad. Don't be like that. Yeah. Stop keeping score. If you've stayed late 4 days out of 5 days at work this week, and you're expecting the boss to like notice that, get out of here. Yeah. The boss is not noticing that. No way. If they do, great. You've got an awesome boss, but you can't expect your boss to like
keep score for you. That's just not how it works. So if you're staying late from work and making your family suffer because they're not getting to spend that time with you, don't throw a tantrum at the end of the year when you don't get the promotion or you don't get the raise, because you're the only one keeping score of that. So either go home when you're supposed to go home, or find a way to make sure that the boss is seeing the direct results of your effort. But don't hold the boss accountable to your extra credit work and then throw a tantrum at the end of the year when you're unhappy.
Which is something that's really hard to learn, because you're like, I work hard for what? But
we saw that in the military all the time. People just sacrifice after sacrifice after sacrifice.
And then get mad when people didn't come back and, reward it. But
it's a really nasty culture, so we want you to stay away from that. So 2 action steps: quit talking, just listen. Quit keeping score. And then the third one, I'll put it here. Give without expectations. Gary Vee talks about this all the time. An example he just posted recently that comes to mind is when you loan a friend $20, just pretend that $20 is gone.
Yep. You're never going to see it again in
even
any
though
other
it's a
form.
loan, even though your friend says, oh, I'm just going to borrow it, I promise I'll pay you back. Give with zero expectation of return. And then if your friend does pay you back, it's bonus nachos. If your friend doesn't pay you back, well then guess what? You got to help out a friend. And that should be the reward in and of itself, because you helped another person.
Yep.
So that being said, that's this week's episode.
Yes.
Sorry to emotionally unload on you. It's been kind of a rough
crazy week.
Anyway, do we have any announcements?
That our next podcast is going to be with our friends Justin and Lauren.
Ooh.
We're excited about this one. This is our second guest. So we had our first guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. That was RJ McCollum, and we had a really good conversation. So if you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to it for sure. But Justin and Lauren are fellow military folk, fellow Air Force folk, just like us actually, and they started their own photography business in Charleston. So we're excited to share with you guys what they've learned. There's some really good stuff in there. So
yeah, I think we teased this last week in the podcast, but we hijacked it because life happened first. Yes. But anyway, now this will be the next podcast next week for sure. But other than that, thank you so much for listening. Again, we'd love a review on the podcasting app of your choice if you enjoyed the show. If you didn't enjoy the show, just keep that to yourself, or you can send us an email to letsquitpodcast@gmail.com, and we can hash it out there, and we'd really love your feedback. If you got an idea for a topic on the show or whatever, send us an email there too. You can let us know what you want to talk about, and maybe we'll see if we've got any experiences we can share. We can relate with you with our experiences
and
there.
then do something about it in the form of a podcast.
Exactly. So anyway.
All right, guys.
Have a great week.